Hey, what's up? I'm Adam if you're new, and if you're returning, then you know what's good. I have a slightly different setup today, but let's just jump straight into it. So today I want to share some tips for learning to code, basically for beginners. Around this time last year, I was kind of starting my journey into the tech world, and I just wanted to share some things because I know it can be really overwhelming when you're just starting off. You don't know where to start, you don't know how to pick up these skills efficiently, effectively. What language do I start with? So today we're just going to get into it. I'm not going to be here too long and, droning on about things, but these are some things I think will be helpful if you are just starting your journey. So let's get into it. So my first tip, and probably the most important, is to learn through projects that you're either interested in or you think the end product would benefit you. Now I'm starting with this because I asked quite a few people in the industry what advice they would give to beginners, and obviously I took all my own experiences into consideration as well. And this was by far the most cited thing for, what to do if you're a beginner. And effectively this means, say you're learning whatever language it is, Java, Python, whatever. And you're trying to get a grip on the concepts, the logic and things like that. One of the best ways to do that is in context, i.e. you have a project, you have something in mind that you're trying to build. And let's get it clear, you don't need to reinvent the wheel and try to come up with the new Instagram with some elaborate application like this. It could be as simple as a script that takes an input and gives you an output. For example, my first ever application that I built, starting off with very little experience, was a content managing application. So it was one where you could effectively a CRUD application. So you can create something, i.e. a ticket in this case. You can read it, so you can pull it back, can edit and stuff like that. So CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. And so a content managing application for people who are, upload onto things like YouTube, onto Instagram and things like that. And obviously knew that there was these things existed already, but I just kind of went on it, took my own spin on it. But building something that I actually had an interest in, I cared what it looked like, I cared what it did, how it functioned. I know when I was learning, just reading off, say from a textbook or from, some sort of website that you've interacted with or whatever, all of these rules can start to get kind of convoluted, okay, but what does this actually mean in practice? My next tip is don't obsess over the first language that you're going to learn. Now, this is different. If you have an end goal in mind, you want to be a Java developer, then it makes sense to start with Java. But if you're not sure, either pick one that's relatively simple in terms of its language is a lot like spoken English or English, like Python, or just go for one that's quite popular at the moment, that you think you'd have an interest in or that aligns with where you want to go. So maybe a front end language like React.js or something like that. But don't worry too much. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the concepts, they're pretty much the same across the languages, like understanding what a data structure is. The logic may be the same, like if statements. They may be slightly different, but it's very easy once you have that basic understanding from whatever language you started off with to kind of just translate or kind of effectively translate from one language to the other. So I'd say don't get too bogged down on that. But again, if you have specific ideas of where you want to go to, definitely explore that more. But I'm saying, don't let that stop you. My third tip is to find resources that benefit you, that work with your style of learning. Now, there's a mistake that can be made here, myself especially. I've bought books and things like that are like how to learn Python or whatever this. I think there's probably one around here. But that's kind of not how I learn. I like to interact with things, especially I think with coding, which is it's a very practical skill, right? You can learn the theory all day long, but if you don't know how to implement it, it's pretty useless. It may be that instead of books, you're more into YouTube, and it may be things like you benefit from spending a little bit of money and getting an organized course. And this again falls into not quite knowing where to start or where to go next, and that's the benefit of a course. So there are free ones, but then some that are paid for. I remember when I was really starting off, I used Code Academy, which I found really helpful. It explained the theory and then you had to do some practice stuff, and it was a good mix for me, and that's why since I started it, I pretty much mentioned it on my channel every time I speak about this. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that. My next tip is to set daily goals as well as long-term goals. So what I mean by this is your goal may be to code for 30 minutes a day, right? It's something that you can track, and I advise using tracking for that, but we can speak about in the next bit. Yes, set daily goals. Just like any skill you're learning, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And so if you can kind of develop some sort of consistent, almost habit-like way of learning this, then you're going to put yourself in a better position, right? And something as simple as identifying 30 minutes out of your day where you're going to do this can really help generate consistency and discipline when, learning to code. But obviously you want long-term goals as well. Now, you want to set SMART goals, obviously. If you don't know what SMART goals are, I'll probably just leave it up here without going into it too much. But it's good to have some sort of direction. And it may be as simple as in 1 month, I want to be this application complete. Or like version 1 of my application complete. Or maybe as simple as I want to be able to write a script that returns X given you input Y. Or it could be that it could be whatever it is, right? And you'll probably get better at setting goals related to learning to code and things like that and applications as you go on, because you'll realize, okay, it's going to take me a lot longer to do this, or you know what, I actually did that in a few days. I don't need to set out 2 weeks, a month for it. And also, as a side note to that, consider like challenges. So like the 30-day coding challenge. So because maybe it's too much to consider that you would indefinitely code for 30 minutes a day, think about the 30-day challenge. So for 30 days in a row, you code for 30 minutes a day, and then the challenge is done, and then you can start a new challenge. Those things can be really quite cool in, again, keeping you proactive and engaged. Following on from that was to make sure that you track your work. I'll probably leave this up here, but I had like a spreadsheet where I was tracking what I was doing, how far I was getting into work, like the days that I had met the challenge of 30 minutes a day, or however many hours I'd done that day. And it was just good for me to reflect, and yeah, pretty much. My next tip is to take organized notes. This can be overlooked, but you're going to draw on your notes quite a lot. Now, you can also Google, obviously, in case you forget something, but your notes are obviously going to be written for you because you write them. So I think it's really important to take time with your notes. Like I do some color coordinating as well, so that if something is theory, it's in one color. If it's obviously example syntax, example code, then it'll be in another color, and I'll be able to quickly identify that when I go to my notes, and things are easy to access. Headings are there. And again, it's just easier when you're working on things to just quickly go into that, boom, boom. I use my iPad and I can quickly navigate to where I need to get to really simply. But on whatever your medium is, do that. My final tip is to, if possible, join a community that is into this, is doing this. A community of people who are learning to code. There may be a mix of experienced coders, people who are learning new languages, or, you may all be beginners. It's irrelevant. The whole point is, and I've spoken about it in my video on habits, is you want to leverage the power of the group and the power of acceptance and wanting to do better for the group and as an individual within the group. So it's a really good thing. I joined a Facebook group that was, I think I'll leave the link in the description bar. But if you don't want to join a group, then maybe try to find just another individual who can hold you accountable. But I think it's good to have some level of community, even if it's a community of 2, so that you can bounce off of each other, gain insight, ask questions, even if you're just like, I feel a bit weird about this. What do you think? Or code reviews and things like that. So that community can be really useful. That's it. That's all I've got on this. I hope it was helpful, especially if you're joining, just beginning your journey. Well done to you for starting on what I think is a really good journey. It's done me well so far. But yeah, just get into it. Ultimately, it's always just that thing of like, just start. I'm an overthinker too, and I can think about planning the whole thing, and then a few months have gone by, and I haven't actually done anything. So just do it. Anyway, I will see you in the next video.